My name is Junie. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is November 14th, 2016. My sponsor's name is Linwood P. My home group is the Friday night up the stairs CMA meeting. I am a tweaker. Um, I have commitments. I have a sponsee, and I do the things that they ask me to do around here. And because of that, I've really have um, a life beyond my wildest dreams. And when I was new, I would hear people say that, and I really didn't understand what that meant and really thought it was kind of bullshit. And really, if you stick around here long enough, you will understand what that means. And you will one day say that with conviction and be able to internalize that. It's really interesting that I was asked to speak today, um, because I've really been struggling and I've been, I don't know, an existential crisis, if you will, but I've just been at a really low point. And these past couple weeks have been the absolute hardest in my recovery. And I have not been struggling with using, I've just been really struggling with what I want to do, where I want to do it, who I want to do it with, and just really um, questioning some things that I've never questioned before, and it's been painful. Um, and I've been praying. I've been really nervous. I've been praying. You know, I have a major resentment right now, and really trying to uh, work through that. And it's just not always easy. You know. Um, To tell you a little bit about myself, I have two brothers and I have two sisters. My parents were both addicts and alcoholics. Yeah. My father was a raging alcoholic that used to beat the living daylights out of my mother. And so I would come home, or we would, it was very common for us to see. Um, by the age of 5, I had seen my mom stabbed. I had seen my dad throw the TV at my mother. I had seen my mom thrown out of the house nude. I had seen my dad drive the car through the living room. And all those experiences were just scary. You know, uh, I hated the adults around me, but I also loved them. And I really, it was very confusing. I didn't understand. I'm just a young kid wanting my parents, wanting my dad not to beat the shit out of my mother, wanting my mom to be safe, and thinking that if I acted a certain way, that maybe my dad wouldn't beat my mother today. If I was a good kid, maybe my mom wouldn't get the shit beaten out of her. And I didn't know as a child how to reconcile those feelings. Um, it was very confusing. Um, by the age of 4, we were 4 and a half. I was removed from my parents' home, and I went to foster care. And I bounced around to several different homes. And I um, learned early on that if I behaved a certain way, if I did things a certain way, that maybe that social worker wouldn't be coming today to pick me up to take me to another home. Yeah. And what those experiences kind of instilled in me was this belief that in my core, I was fundamentally damaged and that I wasn't lovable. And for the longest time, I really didn't understand what any of that meant, but I was really fucking angry about it. And I was really angry most of my life about the parents I was given, about the surroundings and the circumstances that I had to endure. And I am not very trusting because of that. And it's really difficult. Um, it was really difficult then to understand all those things. As a child, you kind of look to the adults around you to take care of you and to make sure you're safe. And a lot of my childhood was scary and it was really unsafe. And I had a lot of different types of abuse. Uh, and so I knew early on that I just couldn't trust those people around me. And as an adult, as I've gotten older and I've really tried to work on things, and I swear to God, sometimes I'm working on shit forever and it feels like there's like no progress. Or there's like minimal progress and then something will happen and then and then you revert back. Um, but I've really tried to take a look at that because in the present, I can't live in the present through the past. And what that means is I can't, view the world as that 4-year-old child that was beaten and abused. I can't live my life as that 4-year-old child that was let down um, by the adults in my life, you know, and it is really hard to do that. It is really hard to make sense of all that. And I've been in a lot of therapy, and sometimes I think like, does this shit hurt? Because it's you can you can chip away at something and then new stuff will come up. You'll chip away at that, new stuff will come up. And, I've been told that God only gives us what we're ready to deal with. And that is probably why it happens that way. Uh, but it is so frustrating to have to deal with that stuff. Um, growing up in foster care, we bounced around a lot. I have two older brothers. One of them I don't know. We were never in the same home together. And then he went into CYA at a very young age. I had a middle brother. He and I were in foster care together more than my older brother. And so I do have a relationship with him. My father was in and out of prison most of my life, and my mom left California and went to Florida to get away from my father. And that was the only way she felt that she could be safe was by leaving the state. And my dad did get drunk one night and hopped on a plane to Florida to go look for her, but never found her. But that was the insanity of their relationship. Um, while I was young, I'm one of those people that know how to program. I know how to stay under the radar. I know how to present. I'm a chameleon. I know how to do all those things. Um, and I don't know where I was going with that. I think I just lost my train of thought. But you know, I I've known how to just, be a chameleon and really fly below the radar. Um, when I was young, I did really well in school. That was the one thing that I will say I've always excelled in. Um, I've always been able to like pursue different things and do well at those things. I knew at an early age, like that would be my only ticket out, that being able to stand on my own 2 feet and be able to provide a life for myself would be really important. Um, I by the time I was 13, my dad tested positive for HIV. He was dying in Chino State Prison, and his dying wish was that he would be able to be a father to his kids again. So my family took me and my brother out of foster care, and we went to live with my dad um, the last year of his life. And that year, in the beginning, was really interesting because he tried very hard to um, to make up for the things that he did wrong. And there wasn't a fucking thing he could do to ever make up for what he did. And it was just, you know, now having my own issues with addiction and looking back, understanding, having a little bit more understanding and empathy for his journey, um, I can see and value the fact that he tried, right? And while he may not have been the father that I wanted and did the things, I didn't have the white picket fence or any of that bullshit. Uh, the reality is that he did the very best that he could under the circumstances that he had to grow up. His dad was an alcoholic. His dad used to beat the shit out of his mother. He was running the streets by the age of 14, strung out on heroin. I mean, that was his life. Um, and having that insight now has been so helpful because for many years I was so angry at my parents um, for what they had done to me. And, for the longest time, I thought it was done because of me, and I just happened to be a victim of their circumstances. It was nothing personal. It just happened, and being able to conceptualize that part of my life from that perspective has been tremendously helpful. You know, it makes no sense being mad at people that are dead, you know, and, through step work and through work with a therapist, that anger, that seething resentment, right, that I had towards my parents was doing nothing for me other than making me extremely difficult to be around. Okay. And I can be extremely difficult to be around. And there are some people here that will probably are shouting an amen to that right now. Uh, and it, so having that, being able to conceptualize that differently has been helpful. You know, um, I took my first drink when I was probably 16. I was at a family party. Um, I got shit-faced drunk. And I remember just finally for the first time being accepted by my cousins. I was always the kid that came home on the weekends from the foster home, and I was like the pity kid. Everyone felt sorry for me. And I just never knew where I really fit in with family. So it's really challenging. Um, but that drink kind of, all those voices and everything kind of went away. And I would periodically drink. Um, And, when I look back at my relationship with alcohol, I have always been a problem drinker. And, for me, um, really understanding that I am an alcoholic and not seeing my addiction to methamphetamine, because I'm like, oh, I'm a tweaker. Like, I'm real clear that I can't use meth and my life falls to hell. in a handbasket real quick. But the minute I take a drink, it leads me to meth. You know, I cannot view any substance differently. The minute I start doing that, I start to tell myself that I have control, that I am not an addict, that I am not an alcoholic. And the reality is I want anything, any substance, because I do not like how I feel inside. And anything will make that feel better. I did meth for the first time when I was like 19 or 20. I had no idea what meth was. I knew what crack was, I knew what heroin was, and I knew I was never going to touch that shit. But I had no idea what methamphetamine was. And boy, did I learn. Um, my addiction to methamphetamine was rapid. It's like that cartoon where, what is it, Roadrunner, and they open up the trap door and they just fall. Like that, that was the experience from the beginning. I absolutely love crystal meth. There is nothing, there's nothing I wouldn't do for it. There is, um, and my life was completely unrecognizable on crystal meth. You know, the book says we're Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And for me, that is 100% true. I am not the person I am today. The minute I take any hit, do a bunch of weird shit. Um, my addiction, within 6 months, I was strung out. Within 6 months, I had left my job at the phone company, was like living with a drug dealer, I guess. It was really insane because all that insanity. Um, Mind you, I was not asked to go live with a drug dealer. It just kind of happened. Um, and things just got progressively worse. There is a normalcy when you're using. There are things that occur that only an addict can understand. And it's just normal, you know? And all the things that I said I wouldn't do, I had a moral issue with that. Um, I found out that, I had no morals or convictions, you know, and I kept using, kept using. I ended up going to jail, got out of jail, kept using, kept using. Went to my first treatment center, I think maybe in 2000. And, it was the day after Thanksgiving. And I just woke up one day and I said, this is not the life I meant to live. And that Monday, I was making phone calls and I got into a treatment center. And I was so grateful when that little intake worker did my paperwork. And, I was going to do everything and I was going to be their star client. And I don't know what happened in the 24 hours. But the next day, I was no longer grateful. I was no longer willing to do shit. And I had a list of recommendations that they needed to do to make their program better. And, I went on a pass and didn't come back. Um, and then I think 30 days later, I got into SAF. And this was, it may have been in 2004 because I went to SAF in 2004. To get to SAF, um, I did everything they wanted me to do. I did their packets, I learned their prayers. You had to do all these things to level advance, and I did all that stuff. And I want to say within 6 months they hired me. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's how the timeline went. And then from there, I go to school, um, get a few degrees. No, I got a degree and a few certificates at that point. Um, and I'm working, I'm doing my thing. Um, and for like the first 6 years, I don't date. I don't have any kind of social life outside of work. And, like I didn't know how to have sex sober. I didn't know how to navigate any of that stuff. And, what made dating really difficult for me was that in 1999, I tested positive for HIV, right? So what's today? What year is it? 23? Okay. So about 23 years. So I've been HIV positive longer. I've been living with HIV longer than I have without it. And I absolutely hated myself. I hated this disease that was running through my body, and I didn't know how to see myself outside of that disease. I thought I was sick. I thought I was disease ridden and that I deserved what I got. And that's how I saw myself. And I didn't know how to see myself in any other way. And it really made having a relationship with a higher power really difficult because if there was a God, he would have spared me, right? That was kind of my rationale at the time. And it was that deep dark secret. It's that thing that as you're writing your autobiography and you're doing your work, it's that thing that they tell you. Let go of your deep dark secrets. You know, that secret was killing me. And I did not know how to see myself outside of that. And I relapse strictly over my HIV, right? And I learned how to shoot up from YouTube videos. And as soon as that happened, like my life took the most wicked turn I have ever seen in my fucking life. Like I cannot believe how quickly everything went to shit. And if I thought things were bad the last time, like this took me to a whole new level. It took me to a point where I picked up 5 felonies, went to prison, okay, I was in county jail, got busted in county jail for bringing narcotics into an institution. Then I picked up, so that was my second charge. Then I caught the chain and went to prison. Had no idea I was going to prison. And, my life just was crazy, you know? And if you know me now, you would know that that's not like I'm Mr. Rule follower. I'm mouthy, but I'm Mr. Rule follower and I like to like abide by the laws and wear the seatbelt and, because I just don't want to get in trouble. You know what I mean? Um, but get some crystal meth inside of me and that's just not who I am. I did prison well. Like it is amazing to me um, what becomes normalized and how you learn to adapt to situations. And what was really scary was that, I made all these commitments while I was there and I was a little fucking captain's clerk. I was a captain's clerk. I was management in prison. Okay. Writing, I did all the 1502s for the art. Um, and I made all these commitments about how things were going to be different and what life was going to be like when I got out. And I got out on one of those stupid ankle monitors. And, I went to, well, I won't say the name of the program, but I was on an ankle monitor in an MCRP program. And I remember when I got to the program, I went to the CC3 and I was like, please send me back. Just send me back. I'd rather get my time done and just be done with it. And she just looked at me and she's like, Gonzalez, I'm not sending you back. You don't need to be there. And you just need to figure out a way to make this work. And I absolutely hated the program I was at. I hated every minute of it, the staff, the structure of the program, everything about it was just the absolute worst fit in the world, right? I couldn't be gay. I couldn't talk about any of those things. It's just like you just had to literally go through the process and just, play their little game. And that is exactly what I did. I played their little game. I went to school. I did some culinary program. Uh, I was making organic gourmet baby food in a freezer, which I hated. It was so cold. Thank you. Um, and as soon as they cut that ankle monitor, all those commitments, all those things I said I wouldn't do, I started doing. And the reason for that was I had no program. I wasn't working a program. I wasn't going to meetings. I didn't have a sponsor. I wasn't doing shit. I was at a program that didn't require any of that. They just wanted some social model stuff. You sit in a chair when you're bad. You run a commitment. Um, so I wasn't doing any of that stuff. So it doesn't surprise me that I would relapse. I start using, when you the first time I used, I was working, so I was a little bit higher. That fall was not so much. The second time, okay, it wasn't starting at such a low point. Coming out of prison is a pretty low point. I didn't have shit. I didn't have a place. I didn't have a job. I had a friend that took me to Target that bought me a few things. That was it. That was all I had. So the minute I started using that ball was horrible. And now I'm like running the streets. Not that I was visiting the streets, I was running the streets. And that was really, really difficult. And I got into Lakata. My AB 109 officer gave me an ultimatum and I took it. And that has been really the best thing that could have happened. I'm so grateful that she decided to put me in a program instead of putting me in jail. Because in jail, I just would have kept doing what I was doing. I probably would have continued using afterwards. But I really needed to be in a program. And so I got in a program. I reconnected with my sponsor. I started doing um, step work. I did my step work through the NA working guide. Okay. To me, it makes sense. There's a list of questions. I would answer the questions, and then me and my sponsor would get together. He would share his experience. I would share some of mine. He would question some things. He would point some things out to me. He would point out discrepancies. Um, for me, that process made the most sense. It's what's clicked with me. Um, so I've gone through the steps a few times. Um, I get out of Lakata and I transfer here. I'm on AB 109. I think I have like 90 days left. I come here. I live in I live in Daryl's house, which, well, you guys don't know what that house is. I think it was 378. Um, so anyhow, I live in Daryl's house, and Daryl was just such a nice house manager. He was very, very nice. And, I went to meetings. I got a job. I did everything that they asked me to do. Um, and then I end up working here. I get a job here. And, if you would have told me, well, my interview here, I was in sweatshirt. I just went for a run. I was in a tank top. I was sweaty. I was in Roxy's office, and that was my interview. And at the time, I interviewed for like, I think I was auditing charts or something. And, if you would have told me then that I would be here today, I just wouldn't have believed. You know, um, a lot of wonderful things have happened since I've gotten sober. I've finished a few degrees. I got my bachelor's. I got my master's degree. I'm in a second master's degree. I'm in a second master's program. I cleared up all the wreckage. Like I paid back everything that I needed to pay back. I resolved all pending stuff. Um, that was challenging, especially the ones that I didn't want to resolve. But um, I started off my share by saying that I feel like at this moment I'm in an existential crisis. Like there's just some things that I'm just really struggling with. But the reality is that my life is wonderful. I am sober. I've been sober. My solution is not to drink and use drugs. Um, it's painful when you see what I see. There's so much work that is still left to be done, right? And so I can be a little hard on myself about where I'm at, how I respond, how I react to things. Um, and some of it, is justifiable because if you're working a program, you should not be acting certain ways, you know. So there is an element of holding myself accountable that needs to occur. Um, but the flip side is to learn how to have patience and learn how to have grace with yourself because all of you have gone through a tremendous amount of things in your life. Life has not been easy. You've had to overcome many obstacles, and you are here today. This is a step in the right direction. For all of us who are sober, you know, there's a few simple things that we do, which can be annoying at times, but it's like literally you get a book, you read that book, you get a sponsor that holds you accountable, not one that co-signs your bullshit. You learn to hold yourself accountable, okay? And you take commitment, you give back to your different fellowships. You know, um, for those of us that are sober, you can see the freedom. You can see that. If we weren't living in that truth, if we weren't embodying the program, none of you would want to be here, you know? So you can see that in people. So my recommendation is when you go to a meeting, that one, you listen up, you try not to get distracted by her or him. Um, you find someone in that meeting that is sharing something that resonates with you, that connects to your inner being, that pulls you, that draws you to them. And that is probably the person that you should ask to be your sponsor. And when you do ask them to be your sponsor, they may treat you like a child. They may tell you to call them every day. They may tell you to read a certain page. And at the time, it may not make sense, right? But trust and believe in the end, it will. This is a journey that many people have taken and that many people have done successfully. And you can too. Thank you for letting me share it.